Chapter 2 Heroes Assembled. Cliffside Manor, Bayside Palisades, Queens, New York, 9 o'clock p.m., July 21st, 2013. About twice as large as a golf course from side to side and top to bottom, the old mansion's grounds were a beautiful sight to behold. Its gardens, gym, pool, and wide grass field were majestic. No one knew much about the mansion because no one owned it, and if someone did, they didn't come out of the grounds. Basically, the place was known as the finest looking haunted mansion in New York because of the fact that the place wasn't run down and no one lived there or had in years. But someone did live there, right at this very moment. That very someone was in the dark of the mansion's library, reminiscing about the events that had brought him back to this abandoned mansion. It was his home before his father was drafted into the military for the Iraq War, and then the person in the mansion was indicted into Sleet's TechNet lab division, forcing them to abandon their mansion home for the time being. After his and his father's deaths, the mansion was offered up on the public market. Apparently no one wanted the property. No understanding why. Maybe it had something to do with the price placed on it by the realtors. So Sleet bought the property for possible future use under the cover of being an enclosed private property area to the public as an alibi for whatever they planned to do with it. Like many of their secret bases, this one was soon labeled under use only if necessary variety, and later became one of Sleet's ghost bunkers due to the fact that nothing was stored here but some high-tech gadgets, materials, and weapons placed there for storage until use. They sort of made his old home into a sort of Area 51, minus the aliens, if there were such a thing, that is. Although the stranger in the vacant house was dismayed at first, he was glad that when Arcane and his men were done remodeling the place, it now had what was needed for what was in store for its returned master. The grounds remained the same as he remembered, and he was still glad that Sleet had kept the house above intact when they built the secret storehouse with access tunnels to various places around the city underneath it. Sort of like a secondary base of operations for a new outpost in New York. Knowing that their home would remain as a new outpost for Sleet and his peacekeeping missions against Fiend, instead of being left to be taken away or demolished by the public to make, maybe a parking lot, the man in the shadows had agreed to it. Back then, it was better that it still stand and be put to good use while he was away. He was also glad that Arcane and his men kept clear of the sight of his family's graveyard in the southeast corner of the grounds near the cliffside, where his mother was buried. The project was stopped when the accident in the desert happened. They decided to turn it into a mausoleum of sorts for the man in the library's shadows and his family after the accident had occurred. Their bodies weren't in the caskets below, of course. They had been thought to have been vaporized in the blast. What were inside were their pictures and personal belongings. But under the mansion, the secret HQ among the storage crates in the bunker was completed. But as the stranger had mentioned, it was never used and placed on standby for future use. And its future use would be coming very soon. Its future use would be to help in the stranger's crusade to stop the after effects of the accident and help the lives of people everywhere that had been affected by the neo-mutagenic results spawned from his research. That's right. The stranger in the library was Dr. Marcus Masters, alive and well, but changed. Marcus then turned on the library's lights. He was wearing a black hooded cloak. He walked over to the window of the library and removed the hood. He then looked in the nearby mirror to stare at what he now was. a literal, living, genetic cause and effect of the accident with his machine. His skin was ink black, his eyes were gold, with no visible pupils, and his voice box, which had been severely damaged in the accident, rendered him unable to talk. But it didn't matter. He could still talk with his mind. You see, the reason Marcus looked like this was because his extra gene, that extra normal gene he had found recently appearing in the human genome, it had been affected by the blast. The gene apparently had amazing genetic mutagenic potential and mutagenic properties when inactivated. Once it was activated, just like his research had shown, it ended up giving its host, when activated, varying incredible supernatural abilities and enhanced health and physique. In other words, the new gene could give its host superpowers when activated, transforming the host into a superhuman. And the accident that had occurred with his machine had activated his own gene as a result. Now he was something new, something past human. He was a metahuman. It was a scientific term he had found in comic books he had read when he was a kid. It was thought up in order to describe the superpowered individuals, besides the terms mutate and mutants. Metahuman was a term applied to all superpowered individuals, be they born this way, like a mutant was, or caused by external mutagenic sources, like a mutate was. Marcus decided to use the term as well, in order to lump the two terms, mutate and mutant, into one. Because, as far as he could tell, the metagene could possibly be activated by both the type of radiation that had activated his own gene, and the other ones as well. Or they could be passed genetically to their offspring, who would possibly be born with their own or a variant of their parents, or just parents' power, if a metahuman had a child with a non-metahuman spouse, i.e. average people. And they might get it down the line of aging, like maybe around the time of growing facial hair or having periods. Superhuman puberty. Yeah. That'd drive the medical researchers crazy. Might have to write a new section in health class about it, Marcus joked sarcastically. Since now he had discovered that the gene could be both awoken normally, or in his case, artificially, therefore making metahumans both mutants and mutates, why not use one term to describe them all like in one of his comic books as well? I mean, it fit. Metahuman, new human, plural humans. The new gene he had discovered would be forever known, at least by him for now, as the metagene, the source of all superpowers. Superpowers found in the world of comic books had now become real, and he had stumbled upon that world, and now that world was one with the known world today, and the world didn't know it yet. A few weeks ago, after his battle in Las Vegas with him, he realized that he was wrong about the effects of the M radiation blast and the activator's explosion. It had produced a blast zone of deadly M radiation that he had absorbed 2 years under a coma inside the blast zone until there was no M radiation left to absorb. But that wasn't the end of the effects of the M ray blast. Oh no, brother. There was one thing Marcus had, to his everlasting shame, not considered. Fallout. When he had first read in the paper about people with powers, supposedly seen in cities where strange disasters had befallen, he realized that the radiation from the blast must have produced outward into a non-lethal fallout type of radiation, which wouldn't kill humans like the baseline radiation of Ground Zero would have, but would have activated the genes in metahumans long enough for them to be activated when they unknowingly absorbed the radiation from the fallout. Radiation that now covered the USA and most of southern Canada, maybe even further. If his own metagene could produce superpowers when activated, what was to stop the others from gaining abilities of their own? The ones who had metagenes like him? Would they be cautious with them? Or would they become like him? The one Marcus was against, who would try to use it to conquest or corrupt the others like them to his cause. The problem was that the world was unaware that superpowers now existed, and the world already had a supervillain, all thanks to him. And he was deadly, insane, and dangerously smart. The world found in comic books really was a reality, including the supervillains. And he, Marcus Masters, was the cause of the turmoil that was happening and would continue to happen in the world from this point on. He had already known about the theft of Demeter and her crew and cargo by ways of listening in on sleek communication frequencies with the tech below, with the help of his techno-savvy friend Silicon. In a way, the teenager called Silicon was his first student from Vegas, an Asiatic teen from the orphanage who the 20-year-old Marcus had befriended during his time recovering from his transformation in the desert. And it was Silicon who soon after had been experimented on by him in order to find out what Marcus already knew about the metagene from scratch for himself. Silicon's gene and the resulting mutation into living metal and enhanced intelligence on technology, and his enhanced aptitude for inventing, had been activated by a biological and emotional stress caused when the villain threatened to kill him in a tank of liquid metal. The living metal form was a type of secondary mutation. He originally just had only the ability to make machines from most anything due to a mechanical aptitude that had appeared in him 2 years ago before Marcus even met the young boy. Meaning Silicon's gene was awakened before the fallout even came out from Ground Zero. With Silicon's help in defeating him the first time and realizing that the world's first supervillain survived the encounter that ensued above Las Vegas and was now targeting other metahumans like them that had been awakened by the blast as well for experimentation and or for an army for himself, is what led to Marcus to become M-Leader and to seek out other metahumans and gather them up in an attempt to teach them how to control their new abilities, to defend themselves, and to set up an offense against the supervillain who was now known as Metamaster to all who didn't know who he was underneath his armor, and his terrible plans for the future of this world for those who weren't lucky to be evolved. With Silicon's help in hacking into the sleek communications with the tech found down in the bunker, they both found out that Metamaster has made his first move. Now it was time that they did the same. Silicon was just now had gone out to check the mansion defenses a while ago in preparation for when the others had arrived. He had been gone on for quite a while, but the mansion grounds were big, and he needed to make sure that the defenses were accustomed to letting the ones bearing the card keys that Marcus had given to them were allowed to pass through the main gate, or above the main gate, whatever way they chose. Was when they arrived. They would still have to come through the main gate regardless. While he was waiting, he had been listening in on his friend and old boss Arcane's frequency. He knew who had stolen the ship and her cargo, what he was capable of. Marcus had considered telling General Arcane about his not being dead and vice versa, but would he believe him? Or would he believe he was the one who stole the ship? This was a new age, and people would always fear anything they didn't understand, even if they were old friends. No, it wasn't the right time. This was his fight. He had to stop this menace on his own power. But then again, He wasn't going to fight the world's supervillain alone, now was he? No. He was going to have help from his fellow metahumans. Recently, he went out and found other people who had through similar events, had gained superpowers of their own, and he had recruited them to help in his fight against the first supervillain. That's why he was here, waiting in his family's old mansion. This was where he had told them to meet him. When they got here, they definitely would be asking questions. That was fine with them. They deserved to know what his history with the world's first supervillain was. How he knew about all this in the first place, and what and why he had called them all for if he hadn't made that clear enough when he found them. They should be arriving soon, Marcus said, looking at his watch. Suddenly, there was a blast of wind, and then a yellow blur shot through the library's door. The blur came to a stop on a red couch on the side of the room. It was a teenage boy in a black and gold leather jacket, with a similarly colored mask that covered his whole face, with a gold lightning bolt running down the front of the mask. Man! The metahuman boy sighed in relief. Phew! Almost didn't find this place in time. I hate being late. It doesn't suit my power. And then he propped himself down on the nearest couch on the other end of the room in the blink of an eye. Welcome, Trevor Sykes. Or should I say, Velocity. Marcus welcomed. Welcome to my home. I trust you'll find my combination suitable. If you're talking about this couch, I'll agree. It's comfortable for someone whose legs work out overtime with his speed power. Velocity nodded, and then sniffed the air. Are those chicken wings I smell? That is correct. There is a buffet down the hall I prepared for my other guests. Help yourself. Yours is the table on the far left, okay? Marcus answered. Gotcha. Velocity then sped off, then came back in the same second with a plate full of food in his lap, back in the same exact spot on the couch he had left. He slowly ate the chicken wings and the rest of the food, which surprised Marcus since he figured that the metahuman would go through the whole buffet in less than 2 seconds due to his speed power. Power like that would most likely mean a high metabolism to balance it out and everything yet. But yet, he was eating the food slowly like a normal person. Velocity must have noticed the confused look on Marcus's face, because he then explained to him, eating, drinking, talking, and vice versa are the only things that I have that my powers do not apply to. My powers are only linked to my speed of movement and running. Ah, I see, Marcus nodded understanding. The doorbell then rang from both the back door and the front door areas of the mansion. I'll get the back door, Velocity said, speeding off. Marcus chuckled. So far, not a bad start for his team of superheroes. He then walked towards the front door of his mansion. He then opened the door and was taken aback only for just a second. It was a will-o'-the-wisp, glowing orb of fire or light found in fairy tales and legends. But Am later knew who it really was. He smiled courteously. Come on in, Mr. Card. The will-o'-the-wisp then floated into the mansion and came to a stop in the library. The will-o'-the-wisp then changed into a flash of light from a ball of fire into a beautiful young teenage girl with raven black hair, wearing cross earrings and a blood-red dress, with 2 black cats with her. One of them, in particular, had a white stripe of fur on its head. Anyone who saw her would guess she was a witch or something, and they would be right. The raven-haired girl was a witch, from a realm of magic and sorcery. Thank you, Marcus, the witch smiled. No problem, Raven Ducard, Marcus chuckled. If you would like, I will show you to the dining room. Raven smiled, acknowledging. Thank you, but I think I know the way. I can smell the food, and so can Murdoch and Celeste. The 2 cats gave a in unison. Marcus smirked. He does realize that he doesn't need to play the charade of being a normal cat here, right? He said concerning Murdoch, the black cat with the white-headed streak. Yes, he knows. I've told him the same thing, Raven said, smirking, kneeling down to stroke her guard demon's head. But, He's stubborn that way. Celeste pawed on Murdoch on the head as if to say, "You can say that again." Suddenly there was an, "Oh! Ow!" from the sound coming from the back door area that drew all their attentions. It sounded like Velocity. Out of the back room door emerged a strange sight. It was a young teenage girl, but she was, well, for lack of a better term, fish-like, wearing some kind of ancient battle armor. Behind her walked a confused Velocity. He was holding his cheek where a red mark in the shape of a hand could be seen. "Impertinent human male," the fish girl huffed, heading into the dining room. Her attitude then became calm and warm instead of fierce and edgy like she had been around Velocity. "Salutations, Marcus. Excuse me, but I need to wash my hands of the repugnant human male ale back there, or stench, before I can join this gathering, as you called it." The fish woman said courteously to her host, "Ladies' facilities are down the hall to the left." Emily motioned down the hall, shaking her head towards the perplexed Velocity. The fishwoman, known as Atlanta, walked down the hallway from there. Marcus then turned his attention to the bewildered Velocity. "What did you say to her?" Raven Ducard folded her arms and gave a stern look to the rash superhuman. "Yes, what did you say to her to get her so mad? Speaking to a girl with your mind off, or something else maybe?" "I just said for a superheroine she was very fine-looking, that's all, leader." "And whoever you are," Velocity shrugged, "it was a compliment. So, who is this, and who is she, anyway?" "This is Raven Ducard. She is a magic user, as in a real witch. And I don't mean that as a term of phrase. And she is a staunch feminist, if that hasn't been made clear. So don't say anything sexist or anything like that, and you won't have a problem with her. And since her magic is tied to her emotions, I take my advice." And Leader introduced Raven Ducard to Velocity. Velocity shook hands with Raven greetingly. "Glad to meet you. Oh, and just for the record, I'm no pig. I'm just a guy," Raven said, smirking. "It's perfectly understandable. Oh, and in the future, Velocity, my eyes are not found in my chest region." Velocity just watched us with his mouth of a jar as Raven left the room to head for the dining room where the meeting would take place. He shook his head in dismay. "I can't even admire them?" he said in disbelief. "What's the point of having chicks on the team if I have to look away from them, huh?" "You want a 12-hour course on etiquette?" asked M-Leader rhetorically. "No," Velocity answered abruptly. "Then I would suggest staying a good distance from Atlanta and Raven. Mostly Atlanta." M-Leader sighed. This possible tension between Velocity and Atlanta may be a bit of a problem down the line. He wondered if it could be avoided, and then he wondered to himself almost rudely, why was I only able to find superpowered teenagers? There was a loud noise coming from the front door of the mansion, which soon ceased, and the door opened. In walked a man made of iron. No, wait. It was actually some kind of robotic armor. And someone was either inside it or controlling it from afar, because the metal man spoke to the two metahumans in the hall. "Oh, hey, M-Leader. Seems I did follow your directions right," the metal man spoke. "So did you hire Robert Downey Jr. or Peter Weller?" cracked Velocity. "Who is this?" "Robo-Warrior," the metal man answered. "What, was RoboCop and Iron Man already taken?" shrugged Velocity. When no one laughed, he sighed. "Great. I'm dealing with people who don't get pulp culture jokes." "No, I got the joke. The helmet doesn't reflect my facial emotions underneath this metal shell. But yeah, wasn't that funny?" Robo-Warrior said. "Everyone's a critic," muttered Velocity. Suddenly there was a bright flash of light beside Velocity, and in the middle of the light emerged a red-headed boy about a year younger than all the rest, wearing some kind of high-tech prosthetic arm, and then Velocity and Robo-Warrior realized that the boy wasn't wearing any prosthetic. His right arm was pure liquid metal up to the shoulder joint. "Well, That confirms it. The sleet slip drive devices work. Just teleported from the eastern grounds inner wall, and the mansion grounds defense grid is working normally as well. I've isolated the power grid so Sleet won't notice that this place is online when we head downstairs, and... The boy then realized he was among others and smirked. Oh, hi there. Who's the nerd? Asked Velocity to M Leader. Hey! The boy objected. His name is Jason Alvers, and he just happens to be a very gifted tinkerer. He can design almost anything he puts his mind to, and he has the ability to shapeshift in a living metal form. M Leader introduced the preteen to the others. That is why I chose the codename Silicon for myself. Silicon said proudly. Aren't you a little, young? You sure T-1000 boy is supposed to be on this team? Asked Velocity. He wasn't snarking. He actually was a little concerned. I'm almost 13, Silicon pointed out. And trust me, this guy you're going up against doesn't care how old you are. I'm in as much danger as any other newborn metahumans. We all are, M Leader pointed out as well. I didn't have much time to find you all, and so we must work with what we got if we are to be successful. He then motioned towards the dining hall. Now let's go in and join the ladies, and we will begin discussing the matter at hand. It's time for the Heroes Legion to get down to business. As everyone began to walk towards the dining hall, Robo-Warrior paused for a second. Hey, M Leader, you said you found 6 of us. I counted with my helmet scanner only 5 extra, including yourself. So where's the 7th member? He'll be here, M Leader assured. Mind telling us who he is? Asked Velocity. He calls himself Shadow Knight, M Leader answered. So how will we know him if he shows up? Asked Silicon. Trust me, lads, you'll know him when you see him, M Leader said cryptically. The Legion then sat down at the big, long table in the dining hall of the mansion. All seats were filled except for one. Raven noticed the empty seat almost immediately and asked about it. Is someone running late? No, he'll be here, M Leader assured. He? Inquired Raven. I don't suppose you could tell me who he is. Well, our Banquo's ghost is a complex and secretive character, to say the least. He's a vigilante. He comes in from Lunar City. Turns out he was the one who killed the brain of crime, and in doing so saved the city from a nerve gas attack. I'm sure you all read about it in the papers, M Leader explained. He was then interrupted by Velocity. I don't suppose you could tell us what makes him so special to join the team. I mean, we have an Amazonian mermaid. Velocity ignored the glare from Atlanta from across the table. A teenage witch, Robocop's long-lost brother, a young preteen genius, and you... Well, you are the guy who could give Obi-Wan Kenobi a run for his money in the mind tricks and robes department. What's this Shadow Knight guy's gimmick? A little disconcerted for being interrupted, M Leader answered the question. Well, among other things, many other things, he's a teleporter. Really? Asked an interested Raven. And yet the guy can't seem to show up on time, can he? Velocity pointed out. I'm already in the room, came a dark voice that seemed to be coming from everywhere around them in the room. Everyone jumped out of their chairs and looked around the room, trying to find the source of the voice, but no one saw anything in the room. Who was that? Asked a stunned Velocity. That, M Leader said, restraining a smile, would be our final member. But there's no one here, Atlanta pointed out. I don't see anyone else in the room but us. You'll have to forgive him. He, has a taste for the theatrical. He likes to scare people. And later explained, I like to scare my enemies, the voice corrected. My allies need not fear me, yet fear follows me everywhere. It's in my very presence and being. Everyone has fear of the unknown. Theatrics, huh? Velocity smirked. Is this some kind of parlor trick? David Copperfield kind of magic? No offense, Raven. None taken, Raven acknowledged as she searched with her eyes around the dining room, trying to find the source of the dark voice. For a second, she thought it was the witch feeder. her old enemy. But then she realized she detected no demonic malice in this dark voice's tone. No, this was someone or something else. Suddenly the dining table shook, and then a gust of air blew out from underneath the table in the shadows. And from out of the shadows underneath the dining table shot a black mass of darkness. When it landed a few feet away from the table, it then rose upwards and shifted around until it formed the shape of a humanoid type of form. The living shadow then became flesh and blood before the Legion members' eyes, and now before them stood a mysterious-looking figure wearing a black trench coat with 2 guns and a sword attached to his belt. A black slouch hat or a fedora could be seen on his head, casting a shadow over the eyes of his metallic mask. Eyes that were glowing red behind the eye-hole screen. His metallic mask almost looked skull-like, theatrical and an almost grim-reaping-looking specter. Those red eyes eyed the surprised members around the room. "You can drop the defensive stance, Atlanta. I mean none of you any harm," the masked man said, looking at Atlanta. Atlanta, who had assumed the mystery guest was an intruder, reluctantly lowered her defenses when she saw M. Leader acknowledge that he knew the masked man with a nod. "That's no parlor trick," Silicon pointed out, amazed but wary of the new member who had appeared out of nowhere. "Who are you?" asked Raven, finally finding her voice. "You can call me the Shadow Knight," Shadow Knight said, and then he courteously bowed to Raven. "And you must be the witch, Raven Ducard. Do you mind if I sit beside you? If I disturb you, I can take my chair and sit elsewhere." "Oh, no. It's all right. Go ahead," Raven said, almost flustered. She was still amazed by what she had seen. Was that shadow magic? What was that what she had been looking for in order to defeat the witch feeder? And if so, could she learn how to do this magic from him? If this was magic? The Shadow Knight sat down at the table beside Raven, Raven didn't see it, but the knight's eyes glanced at her and then quickly looked away once she had her gaze turned in his direction. "So you know her name, huh?" Velocity asked. "I know all your names," Shadow Knight addressed Velocity from across the table. "I read M. Leader's dossier on all of you before this gathering of his commenced." "Yeah, funny that your dossier wasn't in there with all of ours," Velocity said with narrow eyes. Shadow Knight just ignored him. "The Shadow Knight was the last one that I found, Velocity. That's why he didn't have a dossier," M. Leader explained. "So your name is Shadow Knight?" Raven asked. "If you don't mind me asking, what kind of magic was that?" "Oh, I hate to disappoint you, Miss Ducard, but that wasn't magic. It was dark matter manipulation, also known as shadow manipulation." "Oh," Raven said in dismay. "Sorry, I thought it was something else." Shadow Knight's eyes looked at her. I hope I didn't scare you, Miss Ducard." Raven looked at him with a raised eyebrow. "Now why would you think you scared me?" "I just have that effect on people," Shadow Knight said almost ruefully. "Trust me, Knight, you're not the scariest thing I've ever seen," Raven said with a smile. The Shadow Knight seemed to be blushing. Raven was unsure underneath that mask. Really masked his emotions. "And so you're a real witch?" "Yeah," Raven smirked. "But it took a while to get the nose job, have a few warts removed, and lose the broom." "You actually have a broom?" Shadow Knight asked jokingly. And Raven was sure he was smirking behind that mask. "Hey!" she said, giving the knight a friendly punch. "I was joking." "So was I," Shadow Knight said, with a laugh.